Cheers. Talk about politics and religion on Do Not Talk. I'm Charlie Simons. Oh, by the way, you can get this mug at my website, charliesimons.com. CharLeeSimons.com. You can get shirts, you can get hats, you can get mugs, you can get all kinds of stuff there, and you'll be helping this show. You'll be helping us stay on the air because they share with me a portion of the profits of everything that you buy. And I'm already seeing I've been seeing Christmas stuff in stores for the last month now already. So what the heck? Get your Christmas gifts early. Look at that. This is a nice big 15-ounce mug, by the way. And I love big mugs. I cannot lie. Them other brothers can't deny. We're talking about a very serious thing today on Do Not Talk. Talking about things you're never supposed to talk about. That's what everybody tells me. Oh no, that'll tune out the audience. Oh no, that'll lose your viewership. Oh no, that'll lose your sponsors if you talk about that. Listen, after an entire career in radio and television, working for big networks and everything else, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. We're going to have a very frank discussion today with Joe Horn. Joe Ardis, A-R-D-I-S, Joe Ardis Horn is an author, a creator, a producer, a commentator, and a strong believer and follower of Christ Jesus. I just prayed with the man before we even went on the air and started this show. So I pray the same for you, that you will receive what we're about to talk about, because it's very serious. It can get very dark. It's a very scary thing. We don't even want to know that it's going on. It's one of those things literally that is so overwhelming that we just put our hands over our ears. We go, la, 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 I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. But we have to hear it. We have to hear it. We have to hear it. I'm going to tell you right up front that YouTube, most likely, we're live on YouTube right now, also on Twitch TV and LinkedIn, and on my friend Patriot Mike Cook's Facebook page, and on both his YouTube channel and my YouTube channel. And I'll tell you right now that YouTube most likely will delete this. So if you're watching on YouTube, fantastic. While you're there, subscribe to that channel, would you please? My subscribers on YouTube is dismally low. I've been on there from the very beginning. For some reason, I've just been algorithmed and shadow banned, almost out of existence on YouTube. I've had my 1 and 2 strikes against me. This might be the third. So go to rumble.com, because we're live on there right now at rumble.com/do not talk. That's rumble.com/do not talk. While you're there, please follow that channel. You'll be helping, and like it. Hit that like button right now. That helps with the whole algorithm thing too. I'm no tech genius. I've just had to learn as I go along. And I learn a lot of things as I go along too. I'm just a good old boy from Bakersfield. I didn't grow up knowing all this stuff and talking about this kind of stuff. So I have guests on who do. They do know it. They do talk about it. And what that topic is. And I pray that this will not be a tune out for you. I pray that you will not only watch this, but you'll share it with others, because it's so vitally important that we take a stand against it. And I'm talking about child sex trafficking. Watch this.
As the first predator is taken away to be booked with attempting to have sex with a minor. He's potentially facing 8 years in jail, plus a $10,000 fine, and an average lawyer fee of $175,000. He'll be a marked man for the rest of his life, registered as a sex offender. The fact is, he was guilty of this crime before he even got to the house. But V4CR operators and the police gave the perp plenty of opportunity to fully express his intent to have sex with a minor by letting this sting play out.
Statistically, we're learning that each child predator harms an average of 70 children each. Some of them, it's hundreds of children, because they've worked themselves again into positions of authority and access, and some of them sadly never get caught.
The point of that is these people are your neighbors. One thing I've learned from friends of mine who are in law enforcement and family, that the rate of recidivism, am I saying that right? In other words, they commit the crime again, even after they get out, is almost 100% when it comes to child molestation. It's a demonic thing. It drives them, it powers them, it consumes them, just like a demon, because it is. It's demonic. One of the great American treasures was taken away from us last month, and that is this man right here, talking about this very thing that we are going to be talking about today.
If I ask you a hypothetical, would a pastor be in error if he did not speak against slavery in this country? Say, of course. Would a pastor be in error if a pastor did not speak about how kids are being sold into sex slavery? Well, newsflash, there are more people being sold in slavery in this country right now on the southern border than any time in the last couple hundred years, and the church is silent. There are 320,000 kids that we know of that have gone missing, many of whom are now teenage prostitutes and sex slaves for the cartel in the interior of the United States. But the church is silent.
The word's very clear about pastors and anyone who teaches God's word and teaches others, instructs and helps them. They're going to be judged at a higher standard. And the ones that are staying silent on all of this and not talking about it at all, I do believe they're going to have to answer for that. So let's get even deeper into the topic here. Watch this interview.
The implication of what you're reporting is that the federal government is using taxpayer money to facilitate the end of the trip for the human traffickers.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing less than taxpayer-funded child slavery, nothing less.
Deborah White is a federal whistleblower. In 2021, she took an emergency assignment helping process the masses of unaccompanied immigrant children flooding illegally into the U.S. as President Biden took office and the border crisis exploded.
Where is the protection to make sure that you are not, as a federal agency, facilitating the trafficking of the child into the hands of somebody who's mistreating them or even a pedophile ring?
And that's the crux of the matter, is that we didn't have that ability.
Okay. Let's do this. Joe Horn on Do Not Talk. Hit it.
Yeah! Woo!
Hello, my friend. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it more than you know.
CharLee, I agree, man. With everything you said, with all the videos you just played, the excerpt from Charlie Kirk, even what you said earlier about censorship and being deplatformed. If you were looking for a topic to get you deplatformed, deleted, removed, shadow banned, and all the other algorithmic suppressive strategies that these big corporations utilize to keep this conversation out of the mainstream, I was probably your most utilized guest at this point. We've really struggled to get this message out, and it's for lots of reasons we can unpack throughout this interview, but it's one of society's dark little secrets, and people were not natively wired to want to process this kind of trauma. No normal, decent human, CharLee, wants to unpack what these children are going through, and that's normal. The unfortunate side effect of it is it's what Lucifer is banking on. He is banking on your silence.
You're right.
Because silence and inaction is action. It's to do nothing. It's to enable. It's to allow. And so one of the things you and I are here to do today is to say, not on our watch. We're going to do everything we can to raise this to a national conversation.
I'm so glad. And on Skywatch TV, and that's your platform. You're the CEO of Skywatch TV, and good job on that. We'll talk about that more later. You openly explore these things in such a way that you cannot be shut down, cannot be shut up. The thing that I learned during the whole COVID shutdown, and I've been saying over and over and over again, is we have to start creating our own ways to come together.
That's right.
Because I don't believe, no matter how much Mark Zuckerberg actually went to President Trump's inauguration, he supposedly got rid of the fact checkers, but it's all been replaced by AI. About 3.5 months ago, I had Facebook Meta delete every single one of my Facebook pages for something I posted about Pride Month. And how false that whole thing is. And it's not what people think. And it's something to be stood up against, but I was targeted by Meta for that. They deleted every single one of my pages, and Instagram too, which is owned by Facebook. So YouTube, which is owned by Google, it's real easy to test how much they hide things from you. Just
Yeah.
put in a search engine on Google, Trump, great president. Just do that. Just put in those 3 words and watch what pops up.
Yeah.
It'll be page after page after page of negative. You'll get to the 4th or 5th page and you'll finally see something positive. So they're acting like they're being kinder and gentler towards we conservatives and especially Christians. They're not. That's a lie. That's an absolute lie.
I would love to tell you that it's not effective as a strategy. I would love to tell you that these people are failing, but in many ways they're not. It's very effective. We at Skywatch TV have been deplatformed over the last couple of years 3 times. And all 3 times, it was 2 of the 3, it was because we had put out a promotional. This wasn't even a heavy gravitas talk with words like rape or sexual assault. It was literally a promotional about our charitable ministry called Whispering Ponies Ranch, where we serve children that have been pulled out of abuse. Just a happy promotional celebrating what God is doing in the lives of young people that have been absolutely dismantled at the malevolent hands of abusers that took great pleasure in destroying them. And now God is rebuilding those children. What a beautiful message. 2 of the 3 times they deleted our channel. No warnings, no demonetization, no temporary suspensions, gone. And the first time they did, we had over 500,000 people. The second time we were climbing over 300, 311,000, 320,000, total delete. And now to this day, even though it's been about a year and a half, CharLee, Skywatch TV, the YouTube channel only hovers at around 11,000, which is not reflective at all of the people that are listening to the program, because by the grace of God, because we're on networks, Skywatch TV reaches 190 million homes worldwide by the grace of God. So we're in over 55 countries, but anything we do in a digital sphere, any of these platforms, the social media, anytime you get into 2 things in this order, child advocacy, where you're talking about especially government involvement in human trafficking, that's probably the one that they come after the hardest. And the second one is anything that has to do with medical autonomy. So vaccine injury, talking about COVID vaccine, anything like that. Yeah. It's absolutely forbidden. It's medical misspeak. It's misinformation. They'll just delete it. Now, under this administration, I have not been back into the COVID vaccine sphere since, so I don't know if that's improved. But this conversation remains very, very difficult to get out there. I've been trying for the last couple of years in every medium, including Amazon Prime, to put documentary series together. And I'm just telling you that it is suppressed. It is shadow banned. All the algorithms. You can tell. I can go on Facebook, CharLee, and I can play a guitar. Just sit around, goof around, play a guitar. And that video will get, 3,000 to 7,000 views in a couple of days. No big deal. I'll go on the same Facebook to talk about child advocacy, as a human being, just my own personal account. Hey, everybody, we're down here at Whispering Ponies Ranch. We just saw little Billy give his life to the Lord, whatever the update is. 138 views. You tell me that's not an algorithm of suppression. At least that is my opinion of algorithmic suppression. It's too suspicious to me.
Who are they protecting? They're not protecting the viewers. They're not protecting the listeners. Oh, we want to protect you from this kind of crass talk because I see on these very platforms is stunning and shocking and appalling, but that's fine. But we start talking about child sex trafficking, and supposedly they have to protect us from hearing and seeing such horrific things. That is insane. Who are they really protecting?
Well, I would speculate, so I can offer my opinion. I can't be on your program, and you wouldn't welcome this either, and us having actually asserted about Facebook, the platform, that we have some evidence that we're being suppressed. Again, this is just my perception of what's happening based on me posting a guitar video and getting lots and lots of plays, and then me posting one on child advocacy and getting almost none. To answer your question, who are they protecting? That's a good question for them. What is their vested interest? All I can do is point to you at the math. I can tell you how these kids are coming up missing. I can tell you the organizations that are being exploited. I can tell you the number of kids every year that are coming up missing, abducted with no chain of custody. I can even explain to you why the FBI is overburdened and can't even prioritize the number of missing kids, especially when you're talking about systems like foster care. But the why has to be collapsed to a spiritual answer. And this is not to scapegoat or to simplify or to be lazy in my research. The bottom line is, after really examining this for the better part of a decade now, CharLee, all I can come up with is what you led with earlier. It is demonic. There is an all-out assault that is being very targeted at an entire generation of young people. Lucifer's playground is having the biggest party in the world. Every time a life of promise is snuffed out before it has a chance to begin, it has to be spiritual. And I believe that children are the highest form of prize to Lucifer, because they are God's greatest gift to us as human beings, the opportunity to steward over and to raise and to mother and father these young people. These are lives of potential. They are the most vulnerable. They are still in their adolescence, as pure as human beings can be. They are undefiled until the evil hands attached to abusers get a hold of these kids and then take them out, and then they celebrate these lives being dismantled because they were able to ruin another potential army of God member, another grand gladiator for the kingdom of God. And if I can say this, it in my view, every time a child is abducted or comes up missing or is stuck in permanent abuse cycles, it's the biggest proverbial middle finger to God the Father that Lucifer can literally deliver to his army of minions. They're the grandest trophy to be treasured and savored.
Jesus shared his strongest condemnation against anyone who causes any of his children to stumble. It would be better for him. And this one of the first things I got banned from YouTube, or excuse me, Facebook, was when I just posted this scripture and talked about it. And you'll find it in Luke and John, if I remember right. And that is, if anyone causes these young ones to stumble, it would be better for him to have a heavy millstone tied around his neck and to be cast into the sea. He did not say it would be better if they did it to themselves. He said it would be better if it was done to them. Then what's going to happen to them once we leave this earth?
Matthew 18:6.
Yes. Matthew and Luke.
18. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. No, lots of Matthew
very clear on that. So, and it's also very, very clear to me, the war against anyone who speaks out boldly about child sex trafficking and the way that I have been treated. And now I've heard you've been treated as well every time you talk about this.
It's my friend Troy Brewer. I mean, it's literally anyone that is my good friend Troy Brewer. You know, he goes and he actually rescues children out of, containment tankers that are being shipped in and out of the country. Like, this guy is for real. And it's the same thing. He's had guns held to the back of his head via cartels. It's anybody that has done anything at all for the children. It's like Lucifer does not want his supply of victims cut off or tinkered with. And the spiritual warfare that you get confronted by. This is why when we prayed for the show, Lord, help our technology to work. I mean, it's literally the whispers and the venomous attacks of Satan and all of his crummy little minion losers come out in full force anytime you try to do anything to stand in the gap for these kids. And the deal is, without someone championing for them, they themselves are voiceless.
Oh, yeah. They're the only true victims. The only true victims, as far as I'm concerned. People always want to be victims, and they don't like my response, which is there's always something you could have done to make sure that didn't happen, or a way that you could have stopped it. You just haven't explored it. The only true victims are children and animals, because they can't fight back. They don't know what to do. They don't know, and they're easily swayed, unfortunately, too. I mean, lives are stolen and robbed of children in schools where they're being taught, oh no, God wasn't right when he made you a boy. You're really a girl. We know better. It is all about child sacrifice, isn't it? Ultimately, it comes down to that.
You are so on top of this, CharLee. Usually when somebody just asks me generically, what is this Luciferian war that you assert is taking place? Because I say that a lot as an opener. There's an all-out Luciferian war that's coming for our children. Mm-hmm. But when I start to unpack kind of the drive-by bullet point version of what that Luciferian war looks like, it includes gender confusion on purpose in our places of academia, targeted at children under the guise of healthy sex education, Educators are trained in how to talk your children through identifying whether they feel as though, not biologically or scientifically backed, feel as though they should explore being a boy or a girl. And, you know, spirituality, it's like a choose your own adventure book. Do you remember those? Remember
Right.
those? You would read part of a chapter and then you could choose whether you want to go this way or that way. Life becomes a choose your own adventure. Reality is not based in fact or science or scripture. It's based in feelings and thoughts and desires. And where do most of our desires come from? Especially if we turn our minds over to serving the flesh, they all become progressively Luciferian, selfish. We dehumanize others. This is a whole segue into pornography and some astonishing things that we could talk about, how the porn industry fuels the demand for paid for sex with victims, in particularly children. And then we could even back up into the church. The church, you mentioned at the open, you know, that not enough people are rising up. What if I told you it was worse than just our clergy not rising up, but actually participating in these industries, even if done in ignorance, a part of what is fueling the demand for paid for abuse from victims? And by the way, all of the receipts, if somebody's wondering where the porn industry goes, or whether you can harbor it as a secret sin, but still pastor your church and be, you know, mostly okay. All of the receipts are in this book, Innocence Shattered, Dismantling the Insidious War Against Our Children.
Oh, that's beautiful.
There's a framework in this book that becomes a series of irrefutable facts based on real life information that's been aggregated from neutral sources. This is not me as a Christian cherry picking bits of information. It's an irrefutable fact that trafficking in part is a side effect of a serious demand for victims. And people get there because they get bored out of their minds with what they can self-titillate via a screen, because the sin in and of itself is progressive. So I don't know where you want to go next, but I can hear.
Actually, I do.
Okay.
That is the lowest level as far as I'm concerned. It's all very destructive and horrible, and all ultimately child sacrifice.
Molech, Baal.
That's Molech and Baal. Yeah, exactly. That is part of the thing demanded by the devil himself, like you said, robbing an innocent from ever letting them become what the good Lord intended them to be.
That's right.
And the more including abortion. But that's not where I wanted to go with this. I wanted to go with higher ups. These are Hollywood types. These are mega wealthy people who are desiring to stay young, to look young, to be stronger and better and last longer, and they have. It's not a new thing. It's new to us because we didn't even know about adrenochrome. Adrenochrome is probably the most addictive drug of all, and it's made from the blood of human beings, and they get an even more significant high based on how afraid and scared and in pain that child was when they drew out the blood, because of all the adrenaline that is in the blood that these pigs are drinking for their own benefit. Oh, CharLee, that's crazy. Nobody really does that. You agree, Joe? Am I crazy? Does nobody really do that?
What I would say is I don't think you're crazy, and I will say that I have my personal beliefs. One of the things that I've tried to corroborate, so that when I do programs like this, if that particular question comes up, I'll have a broader answer based on facts. It is very difficult, but there's a second part of this answer. It is very difficult to find what I call receipts. To me, receipts are corroborated stories where law enforcement weighed in, you had eyes on the ground, or you have science to back something. If it's a healthcare decision, if there's video surveillance or evidence of, or multiple people that were subpoenaed and passed polygraph tests, 48 out of 53 of them said the same thing. There's a body of evidence where you can then make a more informed decision. With adrenochrome in particular, I find it is very difficult, likely, and this is just Joe Horn talking here, likely because of the purposed sanitization of what facts would have been available. and also the number of bodies that are now in bags that maybe had some of those receipts that were never permitted to speak out loud or openly. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
Joe Horn, the human, believes that there's a lot of validity to what you're suggesting. I wish that there was a broader body of evidence that we could bring forth into the light so that more people could be persuaded. But if you just look at what we do have absolute irrefutable evidence of, it is still an absolute Luciferian assault on our young people. Does that make sense? Like adrenochrome might be one brand. One brand. There's 1,000 other brands that we don't have to wait on in terms of more corroboration or more evidence to be produced so that then we can make an informed decision. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So there's what I believe privately, and then there's what I'm willing to assert without hesitation whatsoever on a program like this. Right now, if I told you that there are 420,000 children actively living in foster care, and then I told you that that's the small number of cases where abuse is known to be taking place, who then also had enough people either call in and identify the abuse, and then eventually a framework around that child to get legal intervention, aka in a lot of cases the foster care system to intervene, where a caseworker takes up that household and does a proper investigation and deems that the child is indeed in harm's way in some way, or malnourished or neglected. That if I said 420,000 of them are living right now in foster care, but that's just the smallest number of people that survive the gauntlet into the system in the first place, would that absolutely boggle your mind? Now, when people hear that number, I realize that it has kind of a monopoly money effect. Like a lot of the people listening just tune it out right away because it is so giant, is so insurmountable that they just feel crushed with depression and sorrow and shallow empathy, sympathy. But it's not going to drive any real action because they're going to be overwhelmed and they're going to say, okay, Joe, it's horrible. It's absolutely terrible, but I can't do anything about it. That's what I'm hoping to change with this book. We're going to talk about some very positive, wonderful things that you can do today that
Good.
will absolutely make you a surrogate to stand in the gap for some of these kids. So I want to lead with that. Of these 420,000, though, it is very common that people perceive the foster care system, almost unanimously, the ones that have never worked within it or around it or know the surrogates that are, they're completely ignorant to the fact that of those children that I just talked about, 90%, CharLee, 90%, not 9. You're hearing me correctly when I say 90% of those kids are statistically guaranteed to experience at least 2 to 5 types of abuse while they're in the system, while they're being passed around from home to home to home to home to home. 2 to 5 types of abuse. So what does that look like? This can include forced sexual assault. This could be hands being held on top of stovetops as a form of teaching or discipline. This is kids locked in dog cages, some of them beaten with bicycle chains or 2x4s. These are kids that are just straight up mule punched in the mouth every time the guardian, aka captor, feels off that day. Some of these kids are lined up and just beaten to work out the fact that the guardian / captor is frustrated, or he didn't get a promotion at work, or he's sexually deviant. I'm not even going to get into how far the sexual deviance goes. People can fill in parts of that for themselves, but it's every kind of forced sexual exploitation that you can imagine. 90%.
The media used to report when these foster care homes were busted because they were literally producing child pornography using those children. The media used to report on those, and
For dark market.
it got prevalent. It got to where you're seeing it all the time, and then all of a sudden it quit. The media quit reporting on it. Is that because they cleaned up their act and everybody quit doing it?
I wish, CharLee, I wish that was how the fairy tale came to an end. That the government self-sanitized and that the foster care system finally got enough funding and that the right people, stood up and took over. And by the way, I also want to offer this. If you're watching this podcast, this radio broadcast, wherever it is you're watching this, and you are a part of a family that has taken children in because you want to stand in the gap for them, you're already part of the solution. I am not disparaging you at all. There's some good, very good people in foster care. They love children. They have sacrificed a lot to deal with the personal and emotional demands of taking on special children that are exhausting, and they're doing it because they're humanitarians.
Just a reminder though, they do get paid. They
Well,
do get paid for it.
but like with doctors, I often believe, no, I do. I know they get compensated, but like doctors or anything else, you know, a pastor that gets a salary for the month, whatever. Not everybody that gets into these things is doing it just for the money. It's like
No,
without.
of course.
So I want to give props to those hardworking people that are out there killing themselves because they want to do something for the kingdom. And this is a very demanding, high tax, emotionally tax.
Thank the Lord for them.
Frequency and framework to do ministry. And so I'm very grateful for that. However, the foster care system in and of itself is so overburdened, CharLee. It is so ill-equipped to deal with the number of kids that they are getting. There are lots of blind spots. This is where it's very easy for children to be classified as runaway and just come up missing.
They
With
just
no
disappear.
chain, they disappear. No chain of custody, nobody looking for them. Mostly classified as runaway. Groomers and traffickers are looking specifically for foster children because they have a number of attributes that make them very desirable. These are kids that have a track record of depression, suicidal thoughts.
They prey on the troubled and the weak. Yeah.
Because they don't have urgent defenders, mothers and fathers that have told them or affirmed them that they have value. No, they're looking for weak, scared people that have a history of running away or have a history of suicidal thoughts or that would be willing to be seduced or lured into sugar daddy type situations right out of the public school system and eventually come up missing, forced into forced prostitution. These kids are high prime target. I have some statistics here. CharLee Kirk is very accurate when he says, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it's about an average. And this, by the way, is coming from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the Polaris Project, Shared Hope International. These are some of the smartest aggregators of information that we even have. And by the way, what they're pointing at are only estimates based on what they can find. And they all assert in their own language that it's probably much worse than just the data that we have. And they still have a conglomerate of an estimated, put together, 300,000 children annually in sex trafficking in total. Government source estimates, the national hotline data, this goes on. And these are recent numbers, 2023 and more recently. They put it at an average of about 11 to 12 foster care children per day being forced into prostitution under the guise of runaway or missing children. I just said 11 to 12 per day. That is their best aggregate guesstimate based on what they know is happening with these children forced into trafficking, forced prostitution, labor camps, stuff that you see in movies is happening right here on American soil every single day. Some of these people go up to 55 per day. These are very conservative, very, very conservative guesstimates, estimations based on what data that they do have. So many missing people, the evidence is difficult. So much goes unreported. You have HIPAA laws. You're not allowed to properly ask about, their medical well-being or whether they were being medicated at the time of their departure. It is a gauntlet. The spider webs go on and on and on. And it's one of the reasons I had to explain it all in this book, not to continuously bring it up on the screen, but I just...
No, if you didn't, I would. Innocence Shattered by Joe Artis Horn.
For somebody that might be looking at it, yeah, then they at least know what the cover looks like. But, these kids, they are living in a real life nightmare. And once in the foster care system, 50%, 50%, CharLee, of these kids will never see a known face or a loved one ever again. So some of them will end up placed with Uncle Dave or, Susan, the aunt, or maybe mother goes through rehab and it's been a couple of years and now she's able to hold down a job. And so eventually with enough, hurdles, life tests, they will qualify her as a worthy surrogate to be a guardian or a custodian once again of a child. But 50% of them will never see loved ones again. So imagine you're hiding under the bed. from real life monsters that live just down the hallway. And the only constant that you have ever known is your sibling, your little brother, your little sister, your big brother. As you hide under the bed from real life monsters, and you're hoping that they pass out from drug overdose, or they get so busy with something else they just don't handle you that day. That's a great day when maybe you're only not fed, but at least you're not assaulted once again. And now one day you're a little child, you see people in blue that mean very well. They're there to salvage you, bust through the door, or during an investigation, a Q&A, you're discovered. They determine through child services that you're an abuse victim, and now they're pulling you out of that house. Well, because the system is overburdened and child placement for multiple siblings is very difficult, you're placed in a home and you never see the only human that you've ever known as a constant. This is the kind of stuff that adults, brother, have PTSD over. You've got people coming home from military service with PTSD comparable to that of what, and sometimes not as bad as some of these little children that are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old are dealing with, going through. We put a series out last year called Rescue Us. It's a 6-part television series. We put it out through Defender Investigative Films. It came out in December of last year. And if anybody's curious and wants to see that series, it's available right now on Amazon Prime. You can go stream it if you want to. It's also available at skywatchtv store.com. You can buy the DVD if you wish. Big six-part box set for the whole thing. But we put it out last year, and what was I saying right before that? There was a reason I brought that up.
You were talking about a child scared and in a foster home where they're being abused, and law enforcement shows up.
Samantha Orr is in that series. Her name is Samantha Orr. She sat down with me for almost 4 hours during the production of that series, CharLee. And she was a foster kid who Jesus Christ personally intervened for and saw to her rescue from that through godly humans. Dr. Jean Orr ends up adopting her. So it has a really good ending. But during her time in the system, she's talking about how live-in boyfriends at very young age, less than 5 years old, are taking her into bedrooms and doing the unthinkable with her. How can you even process this stuff as a child? By the way, one of the most sadistic parts of this that I didn't mention earlier, CharLee, is the purposed effort. We were talking about the multi-pronged Luciferian war on these kids. It is the purposed intent of a lot of these captors and handlers that go by guardian on paper to normalize molestation, sexual assault. Yeah. They want to normalize this.
Well, it's
teach
just
the children that it's
life
love.
choice. It's just another life choice. It's just another. So they, that's what they're sexually attracted to. Can you blame them? Yes, I can.
And this is love.
Stop them because they're children. You don't get to do that to children. Not around me. You're not going to. This is so frustrating. It is so frustrating. You mentioned almost 500,000 children in the foster care system in this nation. That doesn't include all that are being held by Child Protective Services.
No.
Where do they go if there is no foster home? They go into basically juvenile hall. We used to call it juvie. Where do they go? Where are these children
everywhere.
kept?
A lot of them are homeless. So 80 so every year on annual average, about 23,000 of these kids that somehow survive the gauntlet, who don't end up dead or missing on purpose. 23,000 of them on average will end up aging out of that program. Well, that's not a graduation. That's not like, here's a diploma and here's a job and here's a shot at life. That's just, you're too old to be in the system now. Go find a bridge. There are some programs. A lot of these kids, 80%, to give you some statistics, 80% of the young men will end up incarcerated almost immediately. They have no life skills, CharLee. These kids have never been taught anything. They have no sense of value. They have no community. There's no, and the church, people in communities where they don't like the troubled kids. These kids now carry a stigma. That boy's trouble. That girl, she's a whore. She's a prostitute girl. She's no good. She's trouble. Keep your kids away from those people. 70% of these young girls, man, will end up pregnant out of wedlock with children that are statistically guaranteed to go where? I'll bet you can guess. Foster care. So you can see this cycle over and over and over. If you were to back up and ask me, Joe, what do you think one of the biggest causes of all of this is when you're talking about the destruction of youth and the dismantling of children? And, you know, how does it come to be that people would even be capable of such atrocities against such innocence? How can they literally take a child and shatter that human?
Right.
You got to trust me on this, because the long answer could go back and forth, and we could talk all day long about how the nuclear family became so deteriorated. We could talk about motherlessness. We could talk about fatherlessness. We could talk about substance abuse, lack of law enforcement. We could point fingers all day. The generic answer to it, if you bottleneck all of this up to the top of the tree, is a massive spiritual crisis. Okay, well, that's lazy. That's obvious. It's a massive spiritual crisis.
No, it's not
Trust
lazy
me,
at all.
there are specifics in my book that actually talk about the erosion of the nuclear family, and it goes into AI companion apps. It goes into giant corporations that have tried to normalize abuse and inappropriate relationships sexually between adults and children, try to make that normal so that kids don't even know that they're being abused when it's happening. So through giant cartoons, corporations with propaganda-driven writers and content creators, these companion mobile apps now that kids can download, they have access to these on phones, iPads. They're talking to these things as a replacement to mom and dad.
Yes.
They're asking life advice from AI technology that's there to benevolently hold their hand through all of life's big decisions, like what gender am I and who should I trust? And if I'm very depressed, is suicide, is that a viable option for me? You'd be astonished at what kids are already talking to AI about and the kind of responses that they're getting.
Right.
So you
and
can
these AI programs are is starting to come out. What do you do to fight against it? Well, I think you start by not giving your kids phones. It's a good beginning. But no, these AI programs are literally encouraging suicide. They're talking your child into killing.
I love how you say things so simply, CharLee. It's like plain spoken English. Don't give your kids apps. That's a good start, right?
Good beginning. But yeah, they're talking these children into suicide, and they're following through with it, and it's starting to come out. But again, these companies that provide it, this is a multi-billion-dollar business, and they'll go, oh, our bad. Oh shoot, we didn't realize that. Okay, we'll fix it.
Well, and so, you know, the nuclear family, you have corporations, purposed AI apps, all of this stuff has come for our kids. We're not even getting into mass shootings and why there isn't more of our wasted federal dollars every year being allocated to law enforcement that would take pleasure in guarding our schools. Why that's not on the tip of every congressman's tongue in the most conservative age that we've seen in our lifetime, probably. Why in the world? We're wasting billions and billions of dollars. And I promise you that every county would have cops willing to take shifts 24/7 to keep our kids safe. Why this isn't happening? It's an all-out Luciferian assault. But a minute ago, I said, what would Joe Horn say is behind a lot of this? And then I generically pointed, you know, at a lot of stuff that we unpack in the book. But if I had to pick one, if somebody said, Joe, you're only allowed to pick one, and they would assume, oh, you're going to pick drugs, oh, you're going to pick alcoholism, oh, you're going to pick, not so fast. Because I think those are even side effects of this big one. The porn industry is creating, and now with the enhancement of AI technology and where that's going, I have some predictions that people out there that are following this technology wouldn't refute, but your average layperson that hasn't thought about it at all might think I'm insane to say this. But I could almost guarantee you that in less than a decade, there will be those out there advocating, it might be sooner, advocating for it to be, and they'll use every amendment in the Constitution to try to legalize this and build legal frameworks for why this would be okay. But they're going to try to legalize AI adaptation to every kind of fantasy that a human can construct, including children. And they'll even argue that it is not illegal to create AI or artificial porn with the involvement of children because these are not real children. And that means if you're building avatars for the purposes of abusing them to stay out of prison so that you don't have families pointing fingers at you, that is exactly what's going to happen. And there will be those psychologists and those spiritualists and those that'll come forward, CharLee, and they're going to be saying that this is going to be a very meaningful segue to keeping those people from acting out against real children. Let's give them an outlet.
Right.
But they're already doing that with dolls. They're already doing that with dolls. It would be Joe Horn's contention that because you can't separate out the dehumanizing process in what takes a person to a place where they want to abuse others in the first place, just because what they're watching happens to be AI, which looks identical to real life video.
Yeah.
You can't divorce yourself from the dehumanizing process. So to me, it's practice for the real thing. You're not saving children. You're actually rapidly enhancing the ways that people have access to the
You're making them want
technology
to act out on it.
that's going to allow them, without bumper rails for the first time,
Yeah.
to create whatever drag and drop abuse cycles they want on video. I'm not going to be any more specific than that, but the technology, there's apps. I don't want to give people ideas that already exist where you can take people of age, not children yet, where you can drag and drop and custom tailor build any kind of, they're even I was on, so I have this routine where I'll listen to podcasts while I shower, and it's a way to pass the time. And because I do a lot, I've noticed with a lot of this child advocacy for the last 8 weeks, I've done a ton of these interviews talking about abuse and children, whatever. My phone must have picked up an algorithm somehow having something to do with that word salad. And so I'm in the shower, and one of the things that popped up was this stupid ad. And it's, oh, do you want an AI avatar? Now you can drag and drop even your own photographs, blah, blah, blah. And tailor make any girlfriend you want, blah, blah, blah. Your wife doesn't have to know, blah, blah, blah. So I reach out and I dry my hand with a towel and I hit the skip button. But it was like in my proxy, my mobile device is hearing me do all these radio shows on Innocence Shattered and the Rescue Us series. And somehow it has picked up, probably because I'm a middle-aged white Caucasian and I've said a bunch of words about children and abuse, that I must have an interest in wanting to find an AI avatar to abuse or have relationships with. So my point is, this stuff is being targeted, man. You don't have to look for it. It is coming for every human on the planet.
I didn't know about those.
Well, I've known of their existence because of my research, but not had an ad like that come after me via my own technology. Because I have no subscriptions. I have no algorithms for my search that would have anything to do with any of that. I don't go to mobile app sites and download avatars. I have nothing. And I've always told my wife, my phone is an open door policy. My ministry, the same. There is no evidence anywhere that I'm downloading any of this stuff. What I'm telling you is that it must have, this is my theory, it must have overheard me talking about child and abuse and AI and avatar in the porn industry. And so the next thing I know, while I'm listening to a podcast, probably The Word at War with Kyle Milholland was probably the podcast. And this thing pops up wanting to sell me a download, go to the app store. Anyway, the reason that I contend that porn is one of the biggest contributors, and I don't know how much time we have left, so I can collapse this if you need me to be short form.
Go for it, brother. You do it.
Is because it removes the bumper rails over a series of months to years, and it depends on the individual, but it's a progressionism of sin. Anytime you say to the Father above, who has given you life, you become Ephraim. When God says he's joined his idols, let him alone. There is a moment where you pursue sin over and over and over again at repetition, where the Holy Spirit steps back because you are also given free will to choose.
God turned them over to a depraved mind.
There you go. And when you do that, when you say, yes, I am going to try to titillate or satiate my flesh with whatever my fantasies can construct with no limitations and no boundaries. And by the way, no longer bound by what pain thresholds for human beings used to be or what consenting adults would do on video together with a contract. or because of the rise of AI and drag and drop technology, you don't have to be bound anymore to the limitations of what somebody might find in a magazine, right? Now it's just railless, ruleless, bumper railless, guardless, no prohibition, no caps or ceilings or walls, just without restraint. Go daydream whatever you want. Go figure it out. Whenever you do that, it is progressive. What temporarily satiates today, it's like alcoholism. What temporarily satiates the flesh today is very fleeting. And within a few moments to days to weeks, you now have to go further. And a normal hetero
To
sexual
attain
male,
that high that you initially got. Yeah, same with drug use. I know I can tell you stories because before I got saved at the age of 31, I lived life like a rock star.
okay,
So I can corroborate. Let me ask you this about people who say, well, and I've heard this literally in a
literally and aware, you cut out for a sec.
church.
Okay.
About how prevalent, when the pastor was talking about how prevalent pornography is amongst especially the men right there in that congregation, and he nailed them. And the response I heard from Christians were, well, it's a victimless sin. It's not really hurting anybody.
No, we can absolutely deal with that. To buttress what I was saying just a moment ago so that people
Well,
have
this
the
is in
answers.
conjunction with what you're
It
saying.
is.
Absolutely. And my response is immediate, and that is, there's a demonic presence in pornography. There's a reason why it's so prevalent, because we are in the end times, and that's how empires fall, is through sexual sin, especially homosexuality. And when you start jacking with children, you start jacking with kids, you're getting the rug pulled out from under you. You are mocking God, and that's not gonna last. It is not a victimless sin, because you are inviting that demonic presence into your home.
That's right.
And you've opened some portals there, just like messing around with a Ouija board. Oh, I would never do that. But yet you'll look at some porn because it's not hurting anybody else.
It's portals, it's the people in your proxy, it's the churches that are depending on you to be the best version of yourself. Not that you can earn salvation, but you should owe it to yourself and your congregation not to be opening portals inside the house of God, in your offices, or carrying devices in where you regularly frequent this stuff. Like, you owe it to your family not to allow them to be a part of the affliction of what happens when godly boundaries and barriers are tinkered with, because you're offering your home to Lucifer. You're saying, yes, this is a place where you can dwell here. Yes, your minions and evil ones are welcome to stir about in the presence of my children and come into my home. You're the head of your household. If we're speaking to the men, you're the head of your household. But people might still be wondering, CharLee, but how is all that possible? You said a minute ago that porn somehow drives the trafficking industry. Well, it's all in the book, Innocence Shattered, but very generically, so that people catch on to this, because this is very easy to understand. When you satiate and titillate, and you go through this bumperless, boundaryless thing that we've described with progressing through what no longer satisfies, my contestation is that you become a monster. It is absolutely my contestation that you become a monster. And the people that say, to your point, well, now, you can watch porn for years and years, and I never wanted to murder anybody or take anyone's life or sexually assault them. I would say that it's probably that this individual is getting very good at masking who they're becoming, because you can't sell me on the idea that when you remove godly restraint and then pursue whatever your daydreams can titillate or construct that you're fantasizing about in this never-ending progression, that it doesn't eventually become a cycle of abuse and dominance and evil power dynamics, because that's what Lucifer prioritizes. What makes you think that your own flesh won't desire a progressive, slippery slope toward darker and darker and darker things? Jesus Christ gives life. He heals, he restores, he renews. What is the alternate counterfeit to that? What is the opposite 180 of that? It's life taking, it's control, it's decimation, it's disease, it's turmoil, it's depression, it's blocking you from your calling. Does that make sense? So what in the world? You
It's
can't sell me.
don't let's dwell on that just for a quick second. It blocks you from your calling.
Yes.
That is beautiful, Joe. That is beautiful. It blocks you from your calling.
And you can parody your calling. You can go through motions that look like you're in ministry. But let's not forget Matthew. When God separates the sheep from the goats, he uses this analogy of separating the sheep from the goats. And he says, I was hungry and you gave me meat. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was in prison and you came and you visited me there. We find out he's talking about the orphans, the widows, those downtrodden, those less fortunate, those that can't do for themselves, that need a voice, that need a hand, that need help. And he says, enter in. Those of you that are good and faithful, you are my children. And then he turns to the wicked. And then, of course, now he's using the analogy of the goats. And he says, when I was sick and in prison, you did not visit me. When I was hungry, you gave me nothing to eat. I was naked and you did not clothe me. What does he say? Depart from me. You evildoers of iniquity, depart from me. He didn't say, if you sell DVDs with God's branding on it, you get in. He didn't say, if you write books under a large Christian publisher, that your life has value to the kingdom. No, in fact, who's he talking to? I think he's talking to those that are parodying Christianity. And I want to say, by the way, God will still meet you as an individual, despite the surrogate. I wrote about that in a book called Everyday Champions that I put out a few years ago called Everyday Champions, where I highlight the great work of all those that are overlooked in the kingdom of God, and that they are really the ones to celebrate this massive crown that's coming. It's not the TV stars always. It's not the people with the big stuff and the obvious. And in that book, I said, and of course, I'm sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. We were talking about
blocking your calling.
Blocking. Yeah, I was going to say something else. I'm sorry, CharLee. I was on a train of thought. Right.
Yeah, you were okay. I'm sorry too.
No, it's okay. Do you remember what I was saying?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's what started it, was blocking your calling and publishing books and doing all this kind of stuff. But if you're not walking,
that's what it was. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for those live that had to see me totally forget my thoughts there. What I was going to say is, because I wrote,
you know what that makes you? Human.
Yeah. Well, I get so confession. I was told at a very young age that I had ADHD, OCD, all the things, and my mom, to her credit, you and I probably alike, right? My mom, to her credit, refused to do any of the medications and stuff, and just thought, no, he's just a clever boy. He's interesting. He's unique. He'll sort it out. And I'm so thankful for a lot of medical reasons we discovered later in life with my liver and methylation issues and stuff. It would have killed me. But I'm very easily distracted. So my staff know that they're not to walk down the hall or be talk like. And I looked over at my book and lost my train of thought. But getting back to my point that I wrote about in the book, Everyday Champions.
Okay.
If you are attending a church, what I don't want you to hear me say is that because of your pastor hiding this dark sin, that God won't speak to you, or that he won't heal you, or that he won't talk to you. God is bigger than the surrogate. And I think often God will meet you right where you're at based on your heart. He's not going to withhold his presence or his movement in your life. But think of all the damage that church might undergo, or the things that never got realized that could have been great kingdom growth, lives reached, that never happened through that surrogate because of the limitations that he put on his own life, because of his unwillingness to just surrender to God and put away these sinful things. So getting back to how all of this merges with human trafficking, people that are on this course of progressive sin, and they've walked over boundaries, and now what used to satiate has gone to very dark places. There's a point, CharLee, where they're not going to watch screens anymore. They're not going to interact with an iPad anymore. They have got to do something. They are starting to lose the fear of consequence, is how hard they want to do something to someone else. They want to control. They want to hear the wails of suffering. They want to be a powerful, dominant human over now what has not become somebody's daughter or a sister, or it's a plaything.
You've become a monster, and you have become a monster.
You've become a monster. Yep. Pornography enables dark web and illegal content. And by the way, a lot of times what people are clicking on that they think is two consensual adults that have signed up for this lifestyle because of the glitz or the glam or the money or the whatever. A lot of what people are seeing on video is actually forced sexual assault from people now that can't escape.
Yes.
And so you have no idea when you're clicking on stuff who's actually screaming in terror or in agony, or the ones that are playing the role of an abused human being who like the money.
I've
And
never
somehow-
seen any of it, but there's a thing called snuff porn. I've never even seen any of it, but I understand it's very prevalent.
I have heard law enforcement describe, and I am going to, for the sake of your audience, I'm just not going to regale what I've heard, but through people that have done anti-trafficking rings and from law enforcement that I've heard on podcasts talk about this very difficult subject, talk about the videos of what they've seen happen to children over and over again from people that have them captive. We're talking about in a one-day cycle, 8-9 times sexual assault, little boys. And I still get choked up. There's this one in particular that I don't like giving Lucifer props. I don't like sharing his handiwork. What I want to say is I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think there was hope. So as dark as this is, and to buttress before we pivot to the hopeful stuff, so that I've made a coherent point, the paid for demand for sex with children is in large part born out of what pornography now fails to do to the humans that started on porn but now have progressed past it, and they have to do something. They become a peeping Tom. They start looking through people's windows. They get bored with that. They
putting cameras in restrooms and hotel rooms.
Yes. Yeah, I don't even like giving ideas, but I always think of a raptor probing the gate in Jurassic Park to find the weak spots because he's going to get out. You know, that's what these people are probing every gate. They're looking for every loophole. And all of a sudden they realize there's a system that will pay them money for access to abuse victim after abuse victim. And all I have to do is play the role of a normal human in society. I don't like giving people ideas, but you almost can't exploit or reveal the dilemma without the consequence of some people thinking, you know, I've never thought of it that way. Maybe I should sign up for that as well. My hope with this is to illuminate darkness and to be the bleach against a bacteria. In the book, Innocence Shattered.
Yeah, because darkness cannot live in light. But Ephesians 5:11 is what powers this show. Be no part of the works of darkness, but instead even expose them.
Yeah.
But then the scripture does go on to say, these things are so wicked, don't even talk about what they do. So yeah, that's a fine line there, because I so want to say, you've got to understand. And the word also tells God himself, the creator of the universe, said, my people die for lack of knowledge. They don't know. They don't know what's going on. And then when they start finding out, they don't want to know anymore because it's just too horrific. And they look at their own children and they're thinking, what kind of depraved mind can get to this point? Well, Joe has been explaining how that mind got so depraved. And again, we referenced scripture earlier. The Lord turns them over to a depraved mind if they continue down this path. Second Chronicles, people use that a lot about my people called by my name will humble themselves and ask for my forgiveness. And they forget this part. Turn away from their sin. You got to eradicate it. You got to get it out. Jesus never said your sins are forgiven. Now go back and get right back to it, because there's some good porn on. He said your sins are forgiven. Now go and sin no more. We keep leaving that part out. Get it out. You've done it. Okay, fine. But come to the self-realization that this is destructive, if not only to me, and it's not just a personal thing, it's not hurting anyone else. Well, it is, because the porn industry is also using and abusing victims.
That's right.
You're not being utilized fully to your calling. I'll never forget that, Joe. I'm going to remember that. That's beautiful. You're absolutely right. That's what happens.
And if people are wondering, can we turn to the church for hope? Maybe. It really depends on your pastor.
Because a lot of these pastors are right in it.
Well, that's what I was going to say
Unfortunately.
next. And again, I don't know how much time we have left. I can be very quick on this. But
I wish I had more time. I got another guest coming up at 1 o'clock
okay,
Pacific time. So
so
I
you
got
got
about
about
10 minutes. 10 minutes. Let's do it, brother.
I'll hit it at a sprint. We'll see what sticks.
Okay.
The church has a dark secret. They don't want to admit this, and nobody wants to talk about it. In 2020, Barna Research revealed that 57%, that's right, 57% of our senior pastors and 64% of our youth pastors admit that they are currently using porn regularly or have in the past.
Shut up.
And that is a number.
I had no idea those numbers were so high.
With an absolute floor of no less than about 20%.
And how many of them didn't even answer honestly?
Well, see, that's the thing. So I speculate in the book because of the ministry ending shame that goes along with admitting this and people's paranoia that people will find out that they've participated in a poll and 100 other reasons why people wouldn't even sign up to talk about this. These are just the ones that took the poll and decided or participated in the research and decided to be honest. Less than 1% recommend even telling their congregation, CharLee. Less than 1% even recommend telling their congregation. Only 8% of the same pastor group that took this poll feel that they should have to resign. And yet they continue the shame cycle. This is happening right now in the United States. Only 10% of U.S. Christian churches even offer porn outreach ministries. So what this tells you, and there's more, there's so much data. I just did you the quick bullet point. This research was quite in depth. I gave you just some of the highlight reel. What this tells you is that if you were to picture a room of 100 people and out of every 10, you figured 2 of them, no less than 2 of them, and more of them, youth pastors, by the way, are secretly hiding porn addiction that is progressive. Do you want your 12 or 14-year-old son or daughter going to youth group knowing that you're kind of spinning the wheel? You're playing Russian roulette, if I can use that analogy. You know, there's 2 in a chamber of 10 and you get one, and maybe that's the guy or woman that is mentoring your child through all of life's difficult dilemmas and really there for them. We're going to have an overnighter at the youth room, and we're going to I was a kid, man. I went to those overnight parties at the church, and we're going to do popcorn and stay up all night. But even spiritually guiding some of these humans, knowing they could very well be crushing on or developing an attraction to your children. And now they're going to pray for your children. What's that about? You realize when I say, and I'm going to collapse with this, when I say, and I promise, I got one more point, and then I'm going to talk to you about what the appendix at the end of the book does. But when I say that the church in large part is not just not doing much about this, they're actually enabling the very industries where the demand for paid for sex with children is on the rise. That's what every click mathematically contributes to, whether they're doing it in ignorance or not. I don't know how, as a minister of God, I don't know how, if you're worried about being a goat when he separates you from the sheep, I don't know how in the world, CharLee, you can unhear that. So what I want, if you're listening to this program, if I can offer this, if you're a person in ministry, if you're a person that goes to the church, I don't care if you pass the offering plate. What you said at the beginning of this program, CharLee, where you said you think God is going to hold his children, because they're not ignorant to this, to a higher standard. That's what I believe as well. If you're hearing this, what I want you to do, anytime you're tempted to go satiate yourself online, I want you to see a sea of children locked in dog cages, looking back at you, screaming that you stop, emboldening the industry that is in part responsible for why there's a demand that child be in a dog cage waiting for his or her next abuse cycle to take place. That's what I want you to
contributing financially too, because what a lot of people don't know is even when you click on it, the platforms that they're on pay them for each view. They get paid. Sometimes it's just a penny, 2 pennies, whatever, but it's cumulatively, it's huge money. That's why they're doing it. So you're thinking it's innocent, it's not hurting anybody. No. You've just financially contributed to it.
Yes. I want to end with this, if I may, because I want to be honorable to your next guest and not suck all the oxygen out of the day here. If you're wondering if there's anything specific in this book other than just, oh my gosh, it's going to be awful, it's going to be dark, it's going to be brutal, there's a good portion of this book at the end in an appendix after we've raised all the dilemmas so that you now understand at a spiritual level the forces behind what all this is from all the angles that we could put in our book. There's an appendix designed specifically to now create action. And we did the same thing with our Rescue Us series. The second half of the series is actually what you can do about it. And there's a bunch of fun B-roll of kids giving their lives to the Lord and being rehabilitated. And I talk about some of that in this book as a child advocate. You know, we at Skywatch TV, we underwrite a ministry called Whispering Ponies Ranch, where we do interrupt Satan's plan for these children's life. We do rehabilitation. We do Christ-centered focus programs. Every year we do that because of our donors and our supporters. We get to stand in the gap face to face every year and minister to kids at Whispering Ponies Ranch that are much like the ones we're describing. Some have been pulled out of sex trafficking. Some of them are still wards of the state. Some of them admit their abuse cycles when they get to Whispering Ponies Ranch because it's the first time they've ever felt safe. God allows us to do that ministry. At the end of this book, there's an appendix designed to help you. I don't care if you have money. I don't care if you have resources. I don't care if you're grandma on a pension or you're 22-year-old and you got $16 million. I don't care. I don't care if you go to a local church and you could bring to that church a child-focused outreach ministry and also keep your eyes peeled for signs and symptoms of abuse. It is a book structured to help guide you through a series of thought exercises that help you bring God your version of yes, whatever that looks like based on your skill sets. But there's a place in this fight for every person, every talent list, every skill set list, every background, all of the things. There's a place for you. If you'll just say yes to God, he will show you how you can stand in the gap for a child that needs a voice.
Amen. We have way too many sheep. We need more sheepdogs protecting the flock.
And less goats. Less goats.
A lot less goats. I got to read your book. I have to confess that normally, you know, before you have an author on, you read the book or at least skim through it or something. I didn't. I haven't. My
That's
apologies.
not your fault.
Now I want to. Now I really want to. So where do I find it?
You can go on Amazon.com and order a copy today. But also, CharLee, I'll have inventory in a few days. I'll just send you one.
Hold it up again. Hold it up.
Okay.
So we can see what the cover looks like. This is Joe Horn. Joe Artis, ARDIS. Joe Artis Horn. Innocence Shattered on Amazon. How about a website? Can we purchase it through there or click on a link? I'd rather have you promote.
You can. If you want to support Skywatch TV, you can go to skywatchtvstore.com. We're running an offer right now, actually, where you can get the book and the Rescue Us series, I think, for a donation of $55. And that's $100 box set of DVDs that, you know, so it's kind of like get that half off plus the book. But it all goes to support the Skywatch TV ministry, which is a non-for-profit 501c3. And there you have it.
I love it. I'm so glad I met you. It's not an accident that you got on my radar, and that's a God thing, absolutely. And I've given this show over to him. I've asked him because it's been so politically driven. Because I'm a political guy, but I've been more and more. The Lord has been prompting me to talk about things of His kingdom instead of the Republican Party. He's talking about things that are far more important, that are the ultimate in importance, and that's God's kingdom. His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you, sir, for the time.
Thank you,
I'll have you on again real soon. I hate to give you a pitch to help this show stay on the air financially, but I feel compelled to tell you about a hat that I have at my website. You can purchase it at charliesimons.com, and it says, "Make pedophiles scared again." Do I want them to go into the closet? No. Yeah, if that's what it takes for right now to stop abusing children, I want them to think twice. I want them to not be acting out on their urges. Now, immediately. There's some other things on my website too that I think you'll appreciate. You'll get a kick out of one shirt in particular. Look it up. CharLeeSimons.com. CharLeeSimons.com. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America bless God.